In the legal world, there is a combination of forces that feed a corrupt and suffocating legal system for attorneys. Law schools, law professionals, judges, and even the firms themselves for whom you work create a system, a matrix, if you will, that is nothing like what you thought when you passed the bar exam. The purpose of this podcast is to help you escape this legal matrix, leading you out of the proverbial desert to be free of the bondage of the matrix. Hosted by Bryce D. Nyer, attorney at law with over 30 years experience in the trenches of civil and criminal litigation at the state, federal, and international levels. He's a highly accomplished and resourceful legal professional, a true master of his craft, and he's here to help you get your life back. Here's your host, Bryce D. Nyer.
All right, hello out there, wherever you may be. This is Bryce D. Nyer coming at you live from Fayetteville, North Carolina, home of Fort Bragg, for another episode of Escape the Legal Matrix. And we are going to talk tonight about, yes, one of my favorite subjects. We're going to talk about podcasting again, marketing, connecting. Yes, and why are we going to do that? Because if you were alive on November the 5th, 2024, you saw the election results come in. And then on January 20th of 2025, you saw a new president get sworn in, a former president, but now our current president. And part of what rode that train to success was podcasting, whether you like him or not, doesn't matter. Podcasting was critical and key as recommended by his brilliant young son, Barron. So I don't care what your politics are. The fact of the matter is, communication, marketing is connecting, and podcasting is a big, big, big deal. Oh, and I want to go back. Hey, Fort Bragg, guess what? Yeah, it's going back to its name of Fort Bragg instead of Fort Liberty. I don't care what your politics are. I like it. I like it a lot. So let's get into it. So again, I want to remind you, law students and you young lawyers are starting out, and maybe some of you lawyers have been around, that marketing is not advertising. It's not. It's about connecting. And I have found through the years that connecting to people on that personal, professional level is absolutely critical to the success. Now, I didn't know that per se for all those years. I've just always been a very sociable type guy. I like to engage in conversation. I like to talk about politics. I like to talk about money. I like to talk about marriage, divorce. I mean, I love to talk about all topics, especially in the international realm too. That's one of my favorite areas. And so when you talk to people about what they do and you're interested in what they do, they're more responsive to you because you're interested in them. Because I already know all about me, but I want to learn about them. And then what happens is they want to know about me, and you get this connection. And see, that's what podcasting does. And so a few years ago, when I was on that call with Wake Up Warrior, Bryce Prescott, who is the producer of my podcast, Escape the Legal Matrix, came on, and he was briefing all of us that were at the meeting in Zoom. Some were there in person and some were in Zoom. But here's the deal. I was like, wow, this sounds cool. And within a day, I hired Bryce Prescott and his company, his whole team. And that was, I think, maybe it's almost this fall, maybe almost 2 years. It's been a while. And we've recorded a ton of episodes, and the production team is just great. And what I learned through podcasting and working with Bryce Prescott and his company, Media Automated, is that, it's so liberating to be able to have this freedom to speak about these topics and to speak about life and the domains of body, of being a balance in business. And I would not have had that opportunity at all like this had I not met Bryce Prescott through Wake Up Warrior in that particular training session. And every time I come in here, and I'm here in my office, and I like to record where we do the consults because I'm surrounded by, photos of my parents, my son, and it's just a very comfortable feeling. I'm in my element. I'm in my place. This is where I'm supposed to be. And the thing about podcasting is that no matter where you are, if that's where you're supposed to be, you can do a podcast and you can connect and you can communicate and shoot and move with your avatar, the people that you're trying to market to, the ones you want to sell your services or your products. I truly believe that marketing is the number one thing that every person should conquer and learn. I'm convinced of this. When I was in undergraduate school, I was a finance major. Now, the great thing about being a finance major is that when I was there, the courses that I took, you could actually use in real life. And they brought in people from General Motors, from Wall Street, people that were out there in the real world to come in and lead in these certain type of courses. And all the professors that I had, some of them still, like the business law, they were actual trial lawyers. And they would come in and teach when they weren't in court. And hiring the consultants from General Motors and flying them down from the New York Stock Exchange for these big brokerage firms. We were actually with people that were doing the real world things. Now, it wasn't just academic. We were applying what we learned in the real world, buying stocks, bonds, mutual funds, developing criteria to develop portfolios. And one of my favorite classes was marketing. There were 2 semesters of it. And the professor that taught it had been a huge in marketing in one of the Fortune 500 companies. This guy was great. He was young, but he's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And I loved that 2 semesters that I took that course. And it was during, I want to say, maybe my junior year, maybe my senior year, maybe my senior year. But it was just a fantastic class. And I learned along the way in life, even when I was an Army officer and going to law school, that like interviews, you're marketing yourself and you have to be able to broadcast your message and you have to hook people and capture their attention so that they hear what you want to say. And when I find in the legal profession that most lawyers, man, they're just boring as shit. They're just boring. They bore me. I sit there and I go into court and I listen to some of them and it's the same old blah, 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 blah. And I swear I want to cut my wrist with a pencil eraser. I do. Because they don't know how to communicate. What they're doing is they're sounding like a frickin' parrot. A parrot. Just a parrot. They're parroting legal terminology, legal words. And they're not connecting. Some of the most successful lawyers I've ever met, if you want to gauge it on, say, financial success in the jury trials, are those that were able to connect with the juries, especially when they were trying cases where they would get, they would do it on a contingent fee basis, like medical malpractice or something along that line, class action lawsuits where they could connect. Because when you're trying to convince a judge, you're trying to convince a jury, it's all about marketing. It's all about connecting. And if the jury hates you, you're sunk. You're just screwed. That's it. If the judge hates you, you got an even bigger problem. So when you law students and you lawyers, when you get out there in this thing that we call the legal matrix, there's so much noise. There's noise. And the issue is, how are you going to rise to the top where people can actually hear your message? And podcasting, to me, is one of the greatest avenues that you can have. Because you can listen to podcasts when you're jogging, when you're walking, when you're in your vehicle. And I know a lot of my friends, they listen to podcasts all the time when they're on the road on trips. And I listen to podcasts. I listen to other people's podcasts because I'm interested in what they have to say. And I have learned a lot. And I wish I had known about this, 30, 40 years ago. Even as a little kid, I wish I'd known about this. Because communication is critical in everything. I mean, think about it. The first time you heard a song that you still remember where you were, it's from communication. Music is a form of language. It's words and statements, but it's put to music. And I can remember songs the first time I heard them for the first time and where I was. Or a particular movie that communicated some feeling to me. It just pulled me into the movie. I can still remember where I was. I can remember certain people, what they said on a stage or in a presentation, even to this day, that may have been decades ago, because they connected in such a way that message, it stayed with me and it stayed in my heart and it stayed in my brain, and it's been there forever. And I can replay it when I go through certain hard times in my life, to bring me to a place of strength and a place of clarity and a place of focus. And so when I do these podcasts, when I sit in here, I'm just this completely different person. It's like today, it's just raining outside. The weather sucks. It's miserable. It's cold. And I got to tell you, it's just, a lot of people are like, it's just depressing. That's why I love warm weather and I love the sun. That's why I love the beach and the ocean. I love, the sunshine. I don't think I could live in a place where it just rains all the time. I go out of my mind. But I was thinking that today, I was like kind of burned out, doing all this legal work, doing all this other stuff. And I was just like, man. And then I come in here and the equipment's easy to hook up. It's just super easy. And to just sit here and be able to talk to you as if we're all just sitting around this fire pit, having a beer or having some drinks or, and just having chips and dip and salsa and talking about it. That's the way I feel when I come in and I do a podcast. I feel alive. I feel vibrant. I feel this passion to connect with people. Because in reality, God put human beings on this planet to interact with one another. Now, mind you, we haven't done such a great job through human history. We kind of screwed each other over. And the only thing that's changed since really Cain and Abel is the technology with which we do it. But here's the flip side of that. To have love and empathy and sympathy and care, communication can do those same things. It can build a person up. It can build a nation up. It really can. Think about maybe where you were and you were sitting in your car and you heard somebody speaking and it came in over the radio, whether it's FM, AM, Sirius, whatever it is you have in your vehicle. And those words that were spoken, that you heard out of the speaker touched you in such a way that it radically changed your life. It radically changed the way you think. And it completely just reformatted and rewired how you approach everything in life. Well, that's what podcasting has done for me, because it's my opportunity to come in and just to be able to have a conversation, a real deep, meaningful conversation. And that's what I love about Bryce Prescott, because when I have conversations with him, they're one-on-one. And it's not just training, it's leading and talking to somebody who has been in this industry for a while, who's experienced many, many life things, and having that connection to where he's like, look, I can lead you from this bondage of where your marketing sucks into this promised land of where you can go out there and you can connect and you can put it on all these media platforms and people can hear what you have to say. And what you may have to say can maybe save somebody's life. See, that's the key thing about it. You, inside each of you, there's a message that you need to get out to somebody that may save their lives. It may save their careers. It may save their businesses. It may make them a totally different person, a better person in the domains of body, being balanced, and business. This is what happened when I saw Garrett J. White of Wake Up Warrior back in 2018. As I was sitting in my office and I had my social media account up, and this thing kept coming across my screen of this thing called King's Kid and Wake Up Warrior, and I clicked onto it. And for 63 minutes, I didn't hear anything but his voice and everybody else that spoke on that marketing campaign. And I was like, wow. And so see, in my life, through these medium platforms, your voice, your message can change people. And podcasting, to me, it's just a great way to market. It's just a great way to connect. Because you can take it anywhere. You can do it anywhere. And people can listen to it anywhere. Anywhere. On your phone, in your vehicle. You can do it. So you law students and you lawyers, you want to have that connection. I felt so disconnected for a long time from everybody and everything. And then, that day back in, I guess, 2023, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm going to hire you, Bryce Prescott. And I did. And I went on this adventure, this journey. And I don't know where it's going to go. I mean, I don't know. I could be dead tomorrow. I don't know. But here's what I do know. I know that every time I come into this room right here, I know that every time I speak into this microphone, and that I feel like you all are there. I feel like you're right here with me, and we're having this great conversation. And I was discussing this with somebody over this past weekend when I was down at the coast on Business and Balance. And I was listening, I had the Sirius radio on, and it was playing some hits, from when I was a teenager, when I was in high school. And those words put to that music, it like propelled me back to where I was during that time. And just driving down the coast and just listening to it. The communication is so powerful. Words are so powerful. They can destroy people, but they can build people too. They can build nations. They can. So you law students, you lawyers out there, or whatever business you're in, whatever it is you do, I want you to seriously consider, how are you marketing yourself to everybody else, whether it's for business or whether it's just for personal use. And I want you to seriously consider getting your own podcast to do it, to get your message out there, because there are people waiting for you. They're waiting on you. They're waiting to hear you. And that's why you really need to reach out to Bryce Prescott. You need to reach out to Bryce and his team and his company, and shoot me a direct message. Email me at brycednyer@gmail.com. My first name, middle initial, and last name, brycednyer@gmail.com. Go to my website, Law Office of Bryce Dnyer, PLLC, and shoot me a message. I'll shoot you the contact information. Go to Instagram. Go to LinkedIn. Go to TikTok. You'll see Bryce Prescott's name. Just type it in there. And start connecting with the world. Don't sit home alone, binge watching on Netflix and Amazon Prime and everything. Get out there in the world, get engaged, get off the bench and get in the game. And you can do that by just being in a place where you can be you and you can talk about any subject you want. And I'm telling you, the freedom of speech is one of the most important things that we have in this country. And a lot of people take it for granted. They do. They absolutely take it for granted. And once you take free speech away, you're done. You're done. Because what you say, what you write, and what you communicate in total freedom, I'm telling y'all, it can save a person's life. So ask yourself the better question. Where in your world are you failing to take the proper steps to market to those waiting on you? What do you need to do that you're not doing? What are you not doing that you need to do? Reach out to Bryce Prescott. I'm telling you, he's great. He's fantastic. He and his team, I said it before in an earlier podcast here, I'm going to say it again. But I want to get back in, especially after this election, especially when Barron Trump told, again, I don't care what you think about Trump, don't care, it's up to you. But his 18-year-old son said, you need to get on Joe Rogan, you need to get on a podcast, you need to get out there. And he did. And he did. And it had a tremendous effect that helped propel him to where he is. Love him or hate him. Love him or hate him. Certain strategies work, and communication is critical. Just like President Roosevelt in the 30s used to do the fireside chats, whether you liked Roosevelt or you didn't, even if you didn't even know who the hell he is, maybe some of you don't. He was a president of the United States in the 30s and through World War II until he died in April 1945, and then Truman took over. But look, the point was he communicated by use of the radio, which is the same thing really as podcasting. So I want you to think about that. Ask yourself that better question. Get on it. Get yourself a podcast. Get your message out there. Find your avatar. Find your market. And start communicating your message. Because, again, there are people waiting on you. All right, this is Bryce Dnyer coming at you live from Fayetteville, North Carolina, home of Fort Bragg. Woo! Fort Bragg, baby. Fort Bragg. Okay? Where every day men and women don the uniform and do what? They wage war against the enemy to preserve the freedoms that we so often take for granted. One of those freedoms being what? Freedom of speech. This is Bryce Dnyer, and I am out of here.